In one day, the Foragers put 20 of their own towns to the torch, and Caesar wrote in his Commentari de Bello Gallico, his own account of the war, that you could see fires in every direction at once. Crops, granaries, villages, all gone. The legions would march into territory they expected to be thriving and find ash. Then came the harassment. Gallic cavalry was genuinely better than Rome's, faster, and they knew the ground. So they didn't charge the legion, they stalked it. A foraging party of a few hundred men would head out for grain, get pestered by horsemen who appeared from nowhere. And that was the end of it. Supply columns hit on narrow roads, stragglers picked off, small bites every day. And when Caesar came looking for the decisive battle that would end all this, Vercingetorix simply refused to give it to him. He pulled his people back into hilltop strongholds, fortified towns called Apida, perched where Roman formations couldn't function, and let Caesar choose between starving in the open or throwing his men at a wall. There was exactly one place the Gauls begged not to burn. A rich, well-defended town called Avaricum, sitting on a large store of grain. That exception is where everything turned. Hunger does strange things to a disciplined army. The legions at Avaricum besieged the town through 27 days of freezing winter rain, half-starved, building siege towers in the mud, while Gallic raiders harried them the whole time. When they finally broke in and seized the grain stores, it was less a victory than a meal. For a few weeks, they could eat again. And the worst weapon Vercingetorix had wasn't fire or cavalry. It was patience. Any soldier will tell you the waiting is what wears you down, not the fighting. These men trained their whole lives for the clash, the moment two lines meet and discipline decides it, and that moment never came. They woke up hungry. They watched foraging parties ride out and counted how many came back. An enemy you can't close with is an enemy you can't beat, and the legions knew it. You can see the crack at Gergovia, a hilltop fortress Caesar tried to take by force. The assault fell apart on the slopes. By Caesar's own account, he lost 46 centurions, the backbone officers of each century, the men who held the line together, and 700 legionaries in a single afternoon. It was the first real defeat of his career in Gaul, and it told every wavering tribe watching that Rome could in fact bleed. Caesar's answer to all of this was speed and adaptation. He couldn't outwait an enemy who was burning his own food, so he stopped trying. The thing the Gauls had used to strangle him, that better cavalry, he simply went out and bought. He hired Germanic horsemen from across the Rhine, riders every bit as fast and aggressive as the Gauls. And for the first time, the legions had eyes and teeth that could chase Vercingetorix instead of just absorbing his raids. Then he stopped marching to where the enemy wanted him. He kept his forces concentrated, picked his own ground, and refused to get strung out across burned country the way he had before. While his senior legate Labienus held operations in the north, Caesar moved on the Aedui, a tribe that had been supplying him but turned and joined the revolt, fast enough to keep the whole alliance from snowballing. And then Vercingetorix made the one mistake the whole strategy was built to avoid. After a cavalry fight went against him, he pulled his entire army, 80,000 men, behind the walls of a hilltop town called Alesia, in what is now Burgundy, in modern-day France. For months he'd survived by never letting Caesar pin him down. Now he'd done it to himself. He'd handed Rome the one kind of fight it had never lost: a siege. What happened at Alesia is one of the most audacious things any general ever pulled off. Caesar didn't just surround the town. He built a wall of fortifications around it, 10 miles of ramparts, ditches, and towers facing in to keep Vercingetorix pinned. Then, knowing a massive Gallic relief army was coming, he built a second wall facing out, miles of it, so his own siege line was sandwiched between the trapped army inside and the new one arriving behind him. For a few days, the Romans fought in both directions at once, outnumbered, on the edge of collapse, and they held. When the relief army broke and scattered, it was over. Vercingetorix rode out of Alesia and laid his weapons at Caesar's feet. He was taken to Rome, held for 6 years, and executed the day Caesar celebrated his triumph. So the army that spent a year being told it would never get to fight finally got its battle on the only terms it could win. The man who had survived by never letting Rome pin him down ended up in a prison until he was executed. The smoke on the horizon, the empty roads, the foraging parties that didn't come back, all of it had slowed the Roman army and nearly saved the country. But in the end, it bought one siege too many.